All right, this video is talking about taking your word image fusion and refining it from sketch to actual implementation. Now, I have to say, this is probably the step that most students struggle with because they're still trying to work out the details that they should have worked out in the sketch form. And then at this stage, what you should be doing is refining it by looking at different typefaces and possibly, making some minor adjustments. But you really should be almost there when you reach this point of the game. So we'll look at two case studies. And this first one, obviously the word's croquet, and the student was really struggling, right? I mean, if we take a look at the first design, trying to make the C turn into this, angled bracket, which the croquet hoop doesn't even look anything like that. So that's really struggling, right? So then trying to tighten it up, it's still not working, right? I mean, the hoop doesn't look like that, and now we don't even have a C. So still struggling. So then I'm like, okay, let's make the C, but now the C becomes a hoop, but it's still lost its integrity as a letter form. And so what we really see is roquette, right? And we're trying to still, maybe we see croquet there because of the ball, not sure, but it's struggling. I mean, the idea of even picking up the ball with the stripes, I kept trying to push the student to say, you have the ball with the stripe and it's not the O. But again, they kept kind of pushing it. And I didn't want to give them the answer, still didn't want to give them the answer. They're still struggling, right? The C is still trying to be a hoop and the O is trying to be the ball, which is a logical thing, but it's not the right answer. And a lot of this has to do with finding a typeface that works. Right now, the typeface that this person has selected doesn't pick up the round forms that the ball and the hoop would want to be. And so it's really not an ideal typeface for it. So now trying to focus in a little bit further, we still don't have a C. We have a hoop, and we have the ball going through the hoop. But again, the typeface is still not right. The student was just not listening, and they were still trying to push it into directions that really weren't going to work. And now they're trying to get the hoop to go into the ground, even a worse solution, because now we don't even see the word at all. We're like, huh, what is that, So kind of opened it up a little bit, still not working. So I said, find a typeface where the round forms will, accentuate the shapes of the design. And so here, again, going all caps, it works, but it's still not working. It's still, it's struggling. Okay, so why, the ball has the stripe on it, croquet, is that enough? It's not really enough, right? There's other ways of making this happen. So then I was like, well, think about maybe some of the letter forms becoming part of the, the mallet or the hoops or something. And so they started kind of working it here, but kind of broke down. I don't remember if this came before the other design, but the typeface is still not working. So now trying to get the R to be the mallet, it's still not working. I'm like, no, you're missing it. And so then, okay, well, now the ball is going through the hoop, but where did that hoop come from, right? It's not part of the letter forms anymore. And so it's still struggling. I'm like, no, you're missing it. So I'm like, okay, there's a mallet in here and there's a ball. And so then they try to change the R into a mallet. And I'm like, no, there's still a different, better way of doing this. And so I finally had to solve the problem for them. I'm like, you pick a typeface that's thin with rounded forms. The E has the stripes in it, right? I mean, this little letter form right in here, that's got this, if that's a round form and that it has a stripe. Okay, so then, and the T flipped upside down becomes a mallet, and the U flipped upside down becomes the hoop, and you have it. And so this is what I'm talking about when I'm trying to say the letter should do the work. Don't be overly illustrative about it. Now, this is still, I mean, I threw this together literally in just a few minutes. But my point is that, maybe the T, maybe that's a little too much like a mallet. I don't know. There's a couple of things that I might still want to look around at. Might be better if these were all in caps. because the U could still be flipped upside down, but in the E, I mean, it still would work, and it might even be better all in caps actually. And so I didn't even try it, but I just wanted to throw that at them and go, look at this is what you're trying to this is what you're trying to do. And so that's kind of the idea, is to try to get the letters to do the work. Don't make the letters do something else. Let them be, let them do what they need to do. So anyway, that is one case study that you might want to keep in mind as you develop your design. Okay, the second case study was killed. And this ended up being a different solution for a different word. But he was trying to go with the idea that if you're killed, you're starting to fall over. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, that could work. And it's not a bad idea, but it's not saying killed yet, right? It looks like an eye that's falling over, could be sick, who knows, but so then he started thinking about maybe making the one of the letters an outline, as if when the person's killed, they're on the ground and the cops make the outline around them, right? So, but the blood was still like, does that need to be there? It's like it's trying too hard. And so then he went to another form where he decided to make the L. I'm like, well, the L isn't really the right letter to do this, right? So he went, well, what about the crime scene idea? I go, okay, but there's a better letter. And so I keep pushing a better letter. Come on. Kind of try to break it apart. Then he tries to put the dot on the I, dot from the I on the L to make it the person. I'm like, there's a better letter. There's a better letter here. Just look for it. Finally, he's like, oh, the K looks like the person laying down on the ground with the head, with the outline. And I'm like, yeah, now you got it, right? So here, didn't do anything more than borrow the dot from the I, which the letters became lowercase, which makes the emphasis on the K even more so. And so then, he kind of, does the K need to be, does it need to fall over? And it's a valid experiment, but really in the end, and I think this was his final, where he adapted it just slightly. Let me zoom in on that a little bit. Where he adapted the letter form to look a little bit more like a body on the ground. I still think the lowercase would have been better myself, only because, like I said, I think the dramatic difference between the K plus picking up the dot from the I, that's a little bit stronger than the final, which he ended up with this one here. So, but this K with the dot with that lowercase ild, I think would have worked really well. So here, this is a good example of working through the idea. Now, could these ideas have been worked out in pencil? Maybe not, right? Maybe you have to actually see it before you can go, okay, let's do something else, right? So in my mind, it could have been mostly solved at the sketching stage, and then variations like this and this and this would have been designs that you could have, refined in digital. But I think his process through this particular digital study, I think, worked okay. So you can see that there's some ways of working through it where it works and others where it's not so much. Like the croquet project probably should have been worked out a lot more in sketch form before they ever got to the digital. But by the same token, maybe some of those things might have been difficult to visualize in a sketch form. Maybe it did need to be digital. But anyway, this is where you're supposed to be going now. These are 2 case studies. There's a couple more sample studies on the website that you also might want to look at. Okay, so this is where the fun really gets started. So let the fun begin.